now.
I got to do the intro. Hey, do you want something to drink?
I have water right there.
All right, ready.
Okay, go ahead.
Am I ready?
Do your intro.
Ladies and gentlemen, live from Studio 53 here in Las Vegas, Nevada. It is really happening now. Give it up for your host, the one and only Miss Yolanda Martinez. Use it! Woo! Hey! Oh! Okay, now do a good one for me.
No, I can't do an intro if I'm sitting
No,
there. You do it yourself with a different voice.
Okay, I'll do that. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, you've seen him at thousands of shows worldwide. He's been everywhere from Singapore, Australia, Canada, Paris, Poland, Romania, South America. It doesn't matter. He's been around the world. He's been around the world, and I can't help myself.
Intro. Just intro yourself.
Okay.
Come on.
I'm not intro. I've got somebody doing it for me.
Oh, that's right.
Ladies and gentlemen, live from Studio 53. You've seen him over 10,000 shows. He's got the hottest wife in the world. His hypnosis real. Look at that beautiful smile of that woman. You know he ain't got what it takes to get her, so he used the subconscious program. Give it up for the master, the one and only Mr. Mark No Pantalones Music. Oh my God, honey, I didn't. Who did that?
Why do you need an intro?
No, I just ended it. Thank you, John. Thank you, John.
Oh my God.
That was John Stamos.
Angie's on. All right.
John Stamos. Thank you, John Stamos.
John Stamos.
Well, we got a special guest for this week, man. We got Kevin Hart here live. Kevin Hart's coming on. Did you book Kevin Hart?
No, I didn't book Kevin Hart. No.
Ladies and gentlemen, Kevin Hart, he wants to do it, and we told him no. We had a different special guest, ladies and gentlemen. We've got one of the greatest entertainers in the world. Jay Leno is live. He's going to talk about his cars and drive. We don't have to laugh. We have to laugh.
First of all, sorry we've been missing in action, but we've been a little under the weather.
But no, I've been pulling stumps. Well,
you've been
look at that.
Been doing
that ain't a microphone.
Stuff.
That ain't a microphone, freaking callous. That's bam, baby. Boom, huh? Yeah.
Oh my God, you're crazy. Anyway,
yeah. It's June 10th.
He's been doing crazy stuff on the yard. I've been a little under the weather.
It's my little buddy's
better today. So
my little buddy's birthday. Can I do a shout out?
Today is go ahead.
I want to give a shout out to my little friend who I remember when he was in the belly of Carrie and Jason. It is Carson. He's 17 years old from Bakersfield, California. We used to do the Bakersfield Fair. We haven't done it in years. And he used to introduce me on stage and bring me up, and he never said my name right. It was Uncle Nark. And I remember one time he talked about Yolanda. He goes, hey, how come Uncle Nark calls her Yolanda? Her name is Belanda. Remember that? And now he's 17 years old. They're just a great kid. They've got a great family. We miss them. I just got a text message. They're in Las Vegas until tomorrow, so we hope to get together with them tonight. I hope Carson's with them. He is a spectacular young man, and what a great family. If you want a model for a family, Jason and Carrie and their children are definitely that. They're just a super family from Bakersfield. I wish we could get back to Bakersfield, California. Boy, I'll tell you, who would be good there is Brad. They'd freak out there.
Oh, yeah.
Jeez, too bad we couldn't get him. We had a special guest, Brad Byers from America's Got Talent.
Yes,
He canceled on us. He said he had something more.
He's here.
We bumped Kevin Hart.
I got him to come on the show. You didn't do anything.
No, because I had Kevin Hart, and I bumped Kevin Hart because this gentleman, he's the real deal. He
didn't have anybody. Don't lie. Don't lie to people. Don't lie.
No.
He didn't book anybody. He didn't have anybody booked.
He's
full of it. Anyway, we do have somebody here who you guys will probably know.
We have Kevin Costner next week.
No, we don't.
Yes, we do. Matthew McConaughey coming up. I blew the surprise. Matthew McConaughey is going to be here.
Yeah, that'll be a shocker.
You know what?
We have someone that's he's done some pretty crazy stuff, and I've seen some of the crazy stuff he's done.
I think most of our listeners are going to know who he is. If you watch, how many watch America's Got Talent? Raise your hand.
Nobody's raising their hand because
we're not in a live event.
We're not at a live event.
Oh my God!
Just introduce.
Oh my God! This guy, we when we first met him, blew us away. We're thinking, is this an illusion, or is he really like? Was he just
Is
born
he really
with
that
something
crazy?
wrong, or what is it? We can't figure him out. And he would draw crowds that would double and triple the size of our crowds. And we're like, who is this guy? And we got to know him. Zero ego, just a grateful guy. And he traveled all over the world. He's been on America's Got Talent. He's been all over the world performing for people that he can't even talk about. I mean, way up high in there.
He'll
bigger
talk
than
about
Mark.
it. He'll be able to tell us where he's been,
yeah,
what shows he's been on, and what he's done. So let's go ahead and introduce him.
The poop he does, because I can't say shit. You don't throw a thing. I can't say
just said it.
No, I said the poop he did. I said the poop he done.
The stuff he does is
that's a good,
pretty amazing.
Yeah. I'm telling you right now, you will be freaking blown away by this man. If you have to travel 1,000 miles to one of his acts, it's well worth it. Trust me. The first 5 minutes will blow you away. And he became a friend of ours.
If you go on YouTube, you'll find some of his videos too.
Viral. He's got viral. He is a viral man. We call him Viral Brad. That's how Kevin Hart. So when we found out that we had an opportunity to get Brad on, he got bumped. He understood. Matt McConaughey, I said, Matt, dude, chill, dude.
Off.
You'll get your shot. Just, right now it's about us bringing the A people, the A game,
That's right.
So we got him, man. He actually found it that he would do this for us. And even if he was busy, he would have found time in his schedule. That's the kind of guy he is. He would have rearranged something. And today was his day off. We have many days off.
I think everybody's
What's our schedule? Well, we're pretty much off till 2021. It's pretty good, isn't it?
You ready?
Hey, you said you wanted more time at home.
You ready?
Yeah, hey, please welcome our good friend, talented beyond belief. Been all around the world and you've seen him. He's gone viral. Give it up for Brad Byers, the crazy man.
Hey, Mark and Atlanta, good to see you. That's quite an introduction there.
Isn't it?
We can't hear you. Is your mute button on?
No, we can hear him. Don't listen to him.
Dude, I still remember meeting with you, and some of the things, you got to tell us some of the things you did, and then we'll tell some people how we interacted our acts together, even off stage, how we really got people to do things they never thought they would do, right? And yeah. I never thought you would do the things you did, and you still never cease to amaze me. You blow me away. Man, Brad, what an honor. We love hanging out with you every chance we get. You live in Idaho, is that correct?
Well, I was born and raised in Moscow, Idaho, but a couple of years ago I got married and moved just 8 miles away over the state line into Pullman, Washington.
There you go, buddy. Well, there you go. I lived in Washington for a while, and I remember you and your beautiful wife came up and got to see us in Spokane, and we worked together a couple times, and being in Salem. It was Salem, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Salem, Oregon. And I'm like, who the hell is this Brad Byers guy, And then you did your show, and I'm addicted to it. It's like every single show I would be there. It's like, you always had one guy at your show, and that's always me every single time. And just the things you have done have blown us away. How do you get on America's Got Talent? You got to have talent, and you've done it, man. You got more than talent, man. You got a gift and a little craziness. You got to take like one of these crazy pills to do with some of the things you've done. And everyone's like, it's got to be an illusion. Ain't no illusion. You stick this down there, you're going to find out what an illusion is, real fast. So I want to thank you for being here, buddy.
You bet.
You look good. You got your look still going on. You got your
I don't have any calluses like you have, though.
Hey, I still got 2 trees to take out. I'm going to cut one down. I'm going to jerk it out with my big 26-foot box truck.
He's crazy.
I'm going to pull that thing out. Yolanda wants a pool. I gotta make room.
Oh, yeah, I want a pool. We have 2 acres, and he's talking about 1 tree that he has to pull to make.
It's in the way. It's in the way. It's in the way. Well, you've been traveling all over the place. I know this COVID-19 kind of affected all of us. I mean, I had so many events booked. We're going all over the place worldwide. I mean, Dubai and Philippines, and back to Europe and Canada, and it all goes, and it was like a stop, like this big bridge come up and says, do not pass. So how has that affected you in your performance schedule? I mean, what are you doing as far as being able to be Brad Byers still out there and keeping all your fans smiling and in amazement and puzzle.
Well, first of all, what was that?
And cringing every time you do something.
Well, I think
you look normal. I mean, you really look normal. People that do your kind of stuff are usually tatted up and earrings and body piercings and spiked hair. You look kind of normal. That's what's so shocking. You walk by and go, hey, there's a normal sales guy. He must be a more racial speaker. What the frick is he putting in his mouth? And, oh, my God. Holy cow. So call 911. This guy's, he's gone berserk.
I get that a lot when I'm traveling, that they'll send a car from the studio to pick me up and they'll say, well, you don't look like a sword swallower. You don't look like a guy who would do that kind of thing. You look like a businessman. I get that all the time. But,
you are a businessman. You just happen to use entertainment and sword swallowing and other things as part of what you do. That's what I love about you. You're truly a great businessman and an artist and a gifted human being. If I was ever like stuck somewhere in the wild, I would get you because you'd figure out one way how to create and make something to survive. So, so how do you keep in touch with your fans, Brad? How do you deal with this COVID thing? I know we're doing it through StreamYard, and we've got a lot of our shows. Virtual stuff. We uploaded like 7 terabytes and got another 5 terabytes of shows online on Vimeo so people can enjoy them. And that's some of the things we're doing to keep our fans happy and get off the mind of, hey, let's watch the news. Forget the news. Let's watch something that's entertaining and can help us to grow. So what do you do? How do you get there?
Well, I'm still contributing to with videos on my YouTube channel, although now with the COVID crisis, some of them are just in my front yard. But
Yeah.
So that's one way. And then I'm very active on Facebook too. And but I'm working on some new acts. Since I'm not performing, I'm getting new props, working on new things. One of the newest things is, well, I can show you actually. I managed to get my hands on a giant straight razor. And I put out a new video where I actually shave with the razor and then swallow the blade.
Okay. All right. Don't you get hair in your throat? I mean, like cat. Okay. Brad, you shave too close.
I try not to do that when the sword's in place.
So is this an illusion? Is this a trick, or is it's a real deal, isn't it? People think, oh, it's a trick sword, or it's this, huh? How many people accuse you of that?
A lot of my acts, people think is some sort of illusion. But I've actually had x-rays taken, which have appeared in national publications, medical journals, and on TV shows around the world to prove that everything I do is genuine. I don't do any sleight of hand, no magic, no illusion, nothing like that.
No. You even sell some of your props. I found out that you turned into a business. When you start crushing things, you offer it to the audience as a souvenir, a signed souvenir, which is great to get to take part of Brad home with them. You have another person in your act. I don't know if it's male or female, very hairy. And you allow some of the people from the audience, if I'm not correct, to hold. Is it a him or her, or is it you got a couple of each?
It's her.
She's a beautiful girl. Beautiful legs. How many legs?
Her name is Cruella.
Cruella.
Not only is hairy, but she has 8 legs, and I think she's.
And Cruella, do you still have her?
I still have her.
Wow.
And so I have about, I have to count them up, but I think I currently have about 10 tarantulas in my spider room at this time.
Yeah, that's.
You have a spider room?
But I'd love to spend the night at your house, but I would freak out and run, and I'd have nightmares.
No.
Well, my guest room has been converted to a snake room.
Oh,
Lord help us.
No. You're gonna have snake. You have snakes too?
Yeah, we have about I don't know, 12, 14, something like that, snakes.
What? You have 12 to 14 snakes?
Any scary ones?
I'm sorry?
Are there any scary ones, like poisonous ones?
I don't keep venomous snakes, but I have had some pretty good sized snakes. Until recently, unfortunately, we had to put her down. She got a respiratory infection, but I had 8.5 foot red-tailed boa constrictor.
Wow.
And then I've got them down to real small, like rosy boas, and we have lots of different varieties of snakes that vary in size. I've never figured out how to put that in my show yet. I just like snakes.
We have a difference of opinion on snakes. It's okay. I mean, it's okay. You know what I loved about your show is because I would do a show, you do a show, I do a show, you do a show, and people would always say, "Is hypnosis real?" And we would say, "Well, do you think the spider's real? Yeah. Do you have a fear of spiders? Yeah." And we would instantly get people over the fear of spiders. And you allowed people to hold their spider in their hand. And remember the gentleman who came up and worked with us on that? Brandon.
Yeah.
Scared to death. Never. You could have paid him, and he held that spider. And people got over the fear right then and there. They realized through the power of your mind and realized that. And I remember you saying, "No, don't drop her. I don't want to hurt her." Because you do really, they're a beautiful little insect. I mean,
they don't weigh anything.
They don't weigh anything. The illusion of what a spider or tarantula is in our mind. And if you just hold that beautiful spider in your hand, which people are going to comment, I can see the comments coming. Then they don't realize that it's a life. And do you remember when your spider got hurt and you glued it? You're not supposed to, but you glued it and did surgery on your spider to keep her alive. I still remember that story.
I came home one day and she was in her tank and she had a split in her abdomen, the back section of the tarantula, and it was right on top of the abdomen, and that's where the heart is. Tarantulas have an open bloodbath circulatory system, so they don't have like veins and arteries. It's just fluid, and the heart was just pumping it out in big drops. And I knew she was going to bleed to death if I didn't do something. So I took liquid bandage and I painted up the split, and she lived a long time after that.
That is amazing.
Wow.
I mean, you would think, it's just a spider, but hey, I mean, you really liked your spider.
Spider whisperer.
If you ignore what you've seen in the movies,
right,
and even TV shows, documentaries will sensationalize dangerous spiders. If you put that aside and you learn about them, they're really very endearing, cute creatures. I love my tarantulas.
Now, are you allowed to fly in the airlines with your tarantulas? I mean, what happens is it a service tarantula? Support?
Yeah.
Service animal. Well, I used to fly my tarantulas every place I went, just sneak them in my luggage. But since 9/11, I can't do that anymore. They classify them as poisonous insects. And, they're always, I always have them in sealed containers. There's no way they could hurt anybody. I can't imagine hijacking a plane or being a terrorist with just a tarantula. But anyway, so nowadays I have to work with strange tarantulas. I remember one show I did in Lima, Peru. I said, okay, they wanted my tarantula act. And I said, I can't bring a tarantula with me anymore. So we'll have to go to the pet shop and get one. And they said, okay, well, we'll take care of it. Oh. So when I got there, they had some deli cups. When you buy tarantulas, they're often in deli cups, and then you take them home and put them in a bigger, more suitable container. And we were in the office at the studio, and I said, oh, you went to a pet shop and got these tarantulas, huh? Well, no, she said, they don't really have tarantulas in pet shops here. And I said, well, where'd you get them? And they said, we had to go out in the jungle and catch them.
Oh yeah. My God.
And they were there's well, I haven't looked it up lately, but last I knew there was 800 known species. And I'm familiar with the common ones in the pet trade. And this species I'd never seen before. And it was very, very fast. What I did was I just cracked the lid open on the first deli cup in the office there, look in and see what the tarantula was like. And the tarantula was a female guarding her egg sac. Oh. And I just pried the lid open just a little bit to look in, and she immediately tried to attack me. And it's understandable because in nature, everything wants to eat the babies, so she's going to protect them. And I slid the deli cup over after I closed the lid and said, this one will not do. We have a second choice for you. And I opened the lid and peeked in. And this one had a big, some kind of insect or growth. I couldn't tell quite what it was. It was growing out outside of its abdomen. I said, no, I'm not putting that in my mouth.
You put the tarantula in your mouth. They don't realize that.
Oh, no.
Yeah, for people who don't know, I put a tarantula in my mouth, and while the tarantula sets on my tongue, I blow bubbles. One of my world records is the most bubbles blown with a live tarantula sitting in your mouth. And the reason for the blowing is it can evoke a fight or flight response. Tarantula's main sense is touch. So if they feel an air disturbance, they're going to head for their burrow, or they're going to fight and bite. So to prove that I'm blowing, I just blow ordinary bubbles with a children's bubble solution wand. You can prove I'm only blowing on the tarantula. But anyway, so then they showed me the third choice. And as soon as I opened the lid, it wanted out of there. I just opened it a crack, and it was big. It had leg span about like that. It ran out before I could close it, ran across the counter, down the leg of the desk, and headed for a filing cabinet. And I knew if it got on that filing cabinet, it was one of those kinds that are up on legs. Yeah. I thought if it got behind all that office furniture, I'll never get it. So I quickly took the deli cup with the lid off, turned it upside down. I just made a dive, and I caught it underneath the deli cup just before it got underneath all that equipment against the wall, that furniture. I got the lid, and I just slid it underneath. When I slid underneath, she had to walk on the lid, and then I was able to close it. And I said, man, that was a close one. As I turned around, everyone had left the office except for two secretaries, and they were standing on their desks. But that's the one I had used in the show. That was the best of the three.
So you're not a fan of exterminators, I take it. Have you ever got bit by one? Can they bite you, the tarantulas?
They can bite, and depending on the species, the venom is. Some of them have more potent venom than others, and depending on your reaction, some people react more severely than others. But if you get bit on the arm or the leg, that is not nearly as dangerous as being bit in the mouth, which unfortunately has happened. No
way. You got bit in the mouth?
How many
during
times?
a show, during a television show.
Oh my God.
Camera shy.
What's that?
Camera shy spider, huh? They didn't want to be on TV.
Well, what happened
was on a spider when you do that.
I had a TV show down in LA, and same thing. They had to provide tarantulas, and so here's some weird tarantulas I never worked with. And there's a big, impressive-looking tarantula that comes from Honduras, and for obvious reasons, they call it a Honduran curly hair. Now, the Honduran part's obvious, but the curly hair part isn't. They actually have long, blondish, curly hairs, and they get pretty good sized. And I thought, well, we had a rehearsal, and she did fine in rehearsal. So came out time to do the show, and the host was interacting with me. And when I put the tarantula in, it was so squirrely, it turned upside down in my mouth instead of resting on my tongue as they normally do. And while she was upside down, she bit into my upper gums just behind the last molar.
Did you feel it?
Oh, what's that?
Do you feel it?
Oh yeah, I felt it. It started out as an ache, really severe ache, and I thought, I think I just got bit, but I didn't even flinch. I've got video of the show. If you saw it, you wouldn't even know I got bit. And I went ahead and blew the bubbles, and then when I opened usually I open my mouth and I push the tarantula out with my tongue if they're not willing to come out. And I was going to do the same thing with this tarantula, but as soon as I opened my mouth, she was so happy to get out of there. She darted out and climbed up the top of my head. I had to reach up and try to grab her to capture her again, to put her away.
This is on live TV.
Oh my God.
This was a recorded show. But I'll tell you what, it's so vascular in your mouth, and that's close to your heart and your brain and everything. Immediately after the show, I started to get swelling in my trachea, and I could even feel swelling in my sinuses and even in my ear, not to mention, of course, my throat was getting harder and harder to swallow. My wife's got a medical background. She's actually a pharmacist. And so she wasn't there, but I called and she said, you know, you're going to have a reaction. You won't be able to breathe. They're going to have to intubate you. You need to get medical attention. So the producer came up and said, how you doing? And I said, I got bit. I'm starting to swell. And,
Oh my
well, they put me in a car, and I actually went to Cedars-Sinai, where they treated me for the swelling. They wouldn't let me leave until they could make sure that I was able to breathe and
That's a good sign.
And swallow. Yeah. And so I thought, well, I'm good to go then. They gave me some stuff for the swelling, and they said, you know, swelling you'll be good. Well, the next morning I had to fly back to Washington State. And as soon as I sat up in bed, and when I went to stand up, I couldn't straighten my feet. They wanted to point down towards the floor. I couldn't bend my ankles so I could stand on my feet. And the reason was I was having muscle spasms, severe muscle spasms.
Oh my God.
In fact, when I finally did stand up, I found I couldn't take normal strides in my walk, or I couldn't reach my arm beyond just a little bit of movement, or it would trigger these muscle spasms. Then I had to get on a plane and fly home.
Oh,
and my wife picked me up at the airport, and she said I was walking like Tim Conway, his old man. So she took me to the emergency room here in Pullman. So that's a second visit to the hospital. And they said what happened was, this is a little known fact. I've studied a lot about tarantulas and their bite, and this information is not available to just the average pet owner, but their venom is known to cause severe muscle spasms. Now, you can imagine the pain of the muscle spasms and the inconvenience of the muscle spasms, but what I didn't know is when you're get those Charlie horses like that constantly,
yes.
It breaks down the muscle and it puts chemicals into your bloodstream that damage your kidneys.
Oh my gosh.
So I had to take medication to treat that and keep the muscles, well, they didn't keep them from spasming, but it helped it. And I had some kidney damage. Fortunately, it all cleared up. And people ask me, do you still perform it? Yes, I still perform it. But so that was kind of scary.
Oh.
Now, even in my sleep, I'd find myself saying, don't turn over, because if I just changed positions in my sleep, it would trigger the muscle spasms and it would start all over again.
Oh my gosh.
Well, nothing like never giving up. Get back on that horse again. That's what they say.
But yeah, I still perform it. That's the only time I've ever been bit though. And if I could have brought my own tarantula, or if I had such a nervous one and turned upside down in my mouth, it would have never happened.
Yeah. Well, now you know what it's like to get bit. So at least once bitten, you know, that's a good one. How did you, I mean, it's sword swallowing. You could have swallowed swords after the tarantula bite for a day or so, but how did you even get interested in sword swallowing? I mean, it's like, how do you wake up and want to be a hypnotist someday? Back when I started doing it, it's like, how do you wake up and go, you know something, what do you want to do? And go, I don't know, I thought maybe swallowing some swords, that looks interesting. How did you get interested in that?
Well, I started, well, let's see. From my earliest memories, I've always been attracted to the unusual, anything unusual. I didn't like anything common, and that was in school, any subject, sports. And when I became a teenager, I thought maybe there's something that I have an aptitude for that I'm not getting exposed to in just ordinary life. And I started out juggling as a hobby. I really, really enjoyed juggling. In fact, after high school, I started touring with circuses full time with my juggling act. Oh. But I soon found out that I just wasn't cut out to do the circus. I didn't care for the circus life. I wanted to do TV shows, fairs, colleges, you know, the type of events I'm doing now. Well, before the COVID crisis hit.
Yeah. It'll come back.
Yeah, it'll come back. So I remembered that my grandfather, who was alive at the time, told me a story that when my dad was a little boy, he took him to a show in their little town in Idaho, and they had a sword swallower there. So I asked my grandpa, was it real? he said, I couldn't tell you for sure. It looked real. All I know is it looked real. And Moscow, Idaho, and Pullman, Washington are just 8 miles apart. They're both university towns. And I was talking about this to a friend of mine who was a student. And she said, I've got a anatomy book. You want to check it out? So I studied the anatomy book, and I decided, boy, if I could swallow a sword, maybe it would open doors for me. I'd get away from the circus, and it would make my juggling act even, more in demand, so I could do TV shows. So armed with my measuring tape, I went down to my local Army Navy store, because in the anatomy book, it said about how big the esophagus is, which, by the way, is about the diameter of your thumb, and about the length of the average esophagus and throat. So I started measuring swords in the Army Navy store, and I found one that seemed to fit all the dimensions. Then I looked at the price tag. I was the only one in the store. And then it occurred to me, man, what if I pay all this money for this sword and then I can't swallow it? And I thought to myself, I wonder if I could try it first. And I didn't mean to, but apparently I kind of muttered it a little bit aloud. And I heard this voice behind me say, I guess so. And I turned around and the clerk was coming up to help me. I didn't see him coming. And he said, well, I guess so. So I might as well give it a try. So I took the blade and I laid the point flat on the back of my tongue, and I depressed my tongue just like a doctor would do with a tongue depressor to look down your throat. Once the tongue was depressed, I raised the handle up, and to my surprise, it slid down real easily. Oh. I remember it was a cold blade, and it wasn't finished real well. It had some jagged edges. They didn't do a real good job. I had a sore throat for about a week afterwards. And the guard just went clank on my teeth.
Oh my God.
That was the first time I ever attempted swallowing a sword. And I thought, this is for me, this sword swallowing. So I withdrew the sword and I laid it on the counter, and I told the clerk, I'd like to order a couple more of these. And he just stood there like this.
He knew it was a real sword.
He knew it was a real sword.
How old were you when you did that?
Oh my God.
So now I think I was about 20, 21, right in there.
Oh my God. Has anybody ever assisted you pushing the sword down? I mean,
no.
Well, one of the things that I do to prove that sword swallowing is real is I get an assistant, the host of the TV show, somebody to push the sword down. I actually start the sword in the throat, and I have someone hold their hand out flat on the top of the sword handle and push the sword down. Now, I give them instructions beforehand. Obviously, I can't talk during.
Now, just so they know, don't try this at home. Don't
No.
anyone else try this at home.
Don't try anything of what he's saying at home.
Yes.
Do not swallow a tarantula. Do not go put a tarantula in your mouth.
Don't even swallow a tongue depressor.
Before I finish telling you about this incident, I do want to point out that there have been recorded deaths of sword swallowers and other acts that I do. So there is definitely a real risk. Anyway, so I was hired to do, of all things, a shopping mall grand opening. There was a developer that had developed shopping malls all over the country, and he would have me open, be there for the grand opening. And normally I pick a woman out of the audience and have her push the sword down. I have her put her hand on flat on the sword handle and push it down. Now, the reason I have her put her hand flat is because I'm afraid if they grip the handle, they might try to steer it. And they have no idea where it's going. So I just want them to apply a downward pressure, and I guide it just with the movement of my torso. So, but this particular time, there was a guy standing there who looked like a nice guy, and I never had picked a man before, but I thought, why not? So sir, would you like to come up and assist me? And boy, he seemed eager and came right up. But as he got close, I noticed he was shaky. He was just so nervous. I felt sorry for the guy. He was a good sized man too. So I explained to him I was going to kneel on one knee. I would get the sword point started in my throat, like I always do. Hold your hand out flat, push the sword down. Then I tell him when the point of the sword reaches my stomach, you will no doubt feel a sudden stop. I will give you a hand signal like this. which means quit pushing or I'll have to mend a hole in the seat of my trousers. I gave him those instructions, and I thought we're good to go. I started the sword point in my throat. He put his hand out flat as I asked. He started pushing the sword down, following my instructions. I felt the point reach my stomach. I gave him the whoa signal. He kept pushing. And when it was not able to go, when he had like 3-4 inches left to go, he thought, he took his other hand and started pushing with both hands. The sword went further than it had ever gone before. And I had to reach up, grab his wrists, and pull his hands away from the sword handle. I withdrew the sword, and the way I checked for injury is I looked for blood, and there was no blood on the sword. So I thought, good, I narrowly escaped injury. I put it back on my stand, and then I went on with the show, and you know that afterwards, or the finale often is, I swallow a whole bunch of swords, 10, 12, however many, one at a time, put them all down, then I reach up and give them a twist, take a bow, and out come all the swords. So I did my usual finish. Only guess what? It just was a delayed action. When I pulled the swords out, all 12 swords were covered with blood. I threw a towel over them and laid them on a table nearby. And I thought, well, hopefully nobody noticed. And I just made my closing remarks and thanked the audience for being, a good audience. And they applauded and went on their way, except for one person who was in the front row. And he came up to the stage and he said, was that blood on those blades? I said, nah. It was just a little bit of saliva. So I had one person notice, and I had a show the next day.
Oh my God. This is why you make me cringe every time I watch your show. I'm like, at the edge of my seat going, no, don't do it, don't do it.
So did it do any damage?
What's that? Well, I didn't get hospital care. It healed. I think it was just a scratch that bled pretty badly. But I want to emphasize two things. One, I've been a performer now for 45 years, and that's the only time I've really had a really bad injury.
Besides the spider bite.
Well, yeah, but with the sword swallowing.
We won't count that one. Now we won't count the spider bite. Now it's not the injury.
Remember the glass walking?
Oh, yeah.
Or the glass walking.
I won't tell you how I got burned putting a blowtorch out on my tongue once either, but. But anyway, two things I wanted to mention was, that's the only time it's ever happened with the sword swallowing in 45 years. And two, I don't use such a long blade now.
That's a good idea. Now, how many countries have you been to? You've probably been in a lot of countries, huh?
I'd have to count them up. I think it's maybe 26, 27, something like that.
Wow. So you've been on TV shows, though, haven't you? What was like one of your favorites? Some of the favorite ones,
I'd have to say the top two are the Ellen DeGeneres Show, which I did just before the coronavirus shut everything down.
So you recently did it in 2020?
Yeah.
Thank you for calling us and letting us know you were on it.
I
know. And we bumped Kevin Hart for him. Just remember that.
Well,
Will Smith next time. He's not getting bumped either.
Well, I'm known for my sideshow acts, but I actually have available 3 completely different 1-hour programs in my repertoire. And in addition to the sideshow, which I can perform up to an hour, I have a juggling, balancing unicycle show. And I have a record for balancing a dollar bill on my nose. I crease it up the middle and balance it on my nose. And Ellen wanted me to do that, of all things. Not my sword swallowing, not my hook.
How many records do you have? You've got to have a bunch of records, huh?
Yeah, I'm up to
records.
73 world records right now.
How many?
73.
What's like the most memorable one? Like in all the 70, what was the most memorable one?
Well, I think the most memorable one of all is the last time I was on America's Got Talent. I made it to the final rounds, the live rounds where the audience votes. And it was broadcast live from Radio City Music Hall.
Oh, wow.
And before the show, we had a conference call before I flew to New York. And they said, we want to pull out all the stops for these final rounds. We have people with costuming. We have props. We've got all kinds of staff we're calling in. Excuse me. And have you had just any big dream, something you've always wanted to do? We want you to think big. This is just going to be an all-out effort. And I said, well, I've always wanted to land a bed of nails and have somebody drive over me with a four-wheeler.
No way. And
they said, that's what we're going to do. And I said, now, wait a minute. You said, do I have a dream? I didn't say I could do it. I've never even tried it. And they said, well, that's what we're going to do on the show. So they flew me out there, and they had of course, brought my bed of nails, and they introduced me to a gentleman who was the prop guy. And he said, now you don't have to worry about a thing. He said, I've worked with Chris Angel, and we'll have to, for the four-wheeler to get up on top of you, you're so high, we'll have to build a ramp. But I will make this ramp fixed like arches, so it will support the weight of the four-wheeler. And I said, well, I appreciate your efforts, but I am not a magician. You're used to working with magicians. Everything I do is for real. He said, well, this is just going to be too dangerous. We can't let you do it for real. And I'm already there in New York. And I said, well, you don't understand. I agreed to do this bit, and I'm going to refuse to do it if you don't let me do it for real. So we had a meeting, and he came back, and he says, okay, here, we're willing to compromise. We're going to have 2 tracks for the tires to go up on. We will rig one fixed and one you can support on your weight. That way we'll cut the weight of the four-wheeler in half. And I said, no, that's still illusion. I want the weight. I want all the ramp should do is allow the four-wheeler to drive up on top of me. I want it to be collapsible so all the weight is resting on me, or I'm not doing it. So they had another
this through. I mean, if you really, just logically speaking, these are professionals. This is America's Got Talent, not America's, going to kill you type of thing. And this is something you've never done, so it's not like you're building up to it.
That's right.
No, and it was a dream. It was a dream.
Yeah. Well, it's
so then there's another complication. The staff, the people who run Radio City Music Hall said, we're sorry, but we do not allow gas engines to be operated inside the building. Right. In fact, the only way you can bring an engine in is if it's emptied of gas. You can't run it. So they started frantically calling around, and they actually found an electric four-wheeler. Oh, so they said, the good news is we can go ahead with it. We found a four-wheeler that's electric that they will allow us to operate. The bad news is, because of the batteries, instead of 500 pounds, this four-wheeler is going to weigh 1,000 pounds.
Oh.
Now, are you sure you want to do this for real? And I said, yeah, I want to do it for real. And they said, our meeting, they said, okay, we'll let you do it for real, but we are not supplying the stunt driver. We don't want to be responsible. You are supplying the stunt driver. So I called my wife and I said, what the heck am I going to do? Who am I going to get to drive this four-wheeler? She says, well, how about your brother? He can drive anything. He drives motorcycles, snowmobiles, forklifts. Get him. He's never been in show business, never assisted me in any of my acts, never been on television, but I had to get somebody. So I called him up and I asked him, hey, you want to do this? And he was all for it. He came out and they wanted to have a rehearsal. And I said, I'm not rehearsing it. They said, what? I said, here's why. Because when I start the show, I take my shirt off and I show them my back. Then I do the act. When I get up, I show my back and you see the nail marks in my back. I said, if we rehearse it, I'm going to have nail marks when I show them my back before I get on. It's going to ruin the whole act.
Good thinking, Brad. Now you're thinking. Well, that's making sense to me now.
And they said, who better be able to do it? So when it came time to do it, he drove up the ramp and just paused. That 1,000-pound four-wheeler, with my brother driving it, just paused there. And then went down the other side. Afterwards, backstage, they asked my brother, what was it like driving over your own brother with a four-wheeler like that? And my brother said, it's something I've always wanted to do.
And your brother's weight on top of the 1,000 pounds.
Yeah. Yeah, they gave me a world record for that because not just because the amount of weight, but it's weight in motion, which is really dangerous. And what's that?
Did it hurt? Did you break a rib or anything?
I slept on my stomach that night.
I was going to say, I don't think you really, the word dangerous really doesn't cross your mind when you're thinking of these things.
Do you remember when he used to pull things with his nose, stick something through his nose and pull it?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. I'm telling you. I just can't watch your show. Oh my God.
I had X-rays in the hook.
They used to pull people. They'd sit on like, and I remember you walking across glass. I mean, all these crazy things. I'm thinking, when will this guy ever quit? Nope.
No.
I just saw you on Facebook juggling with some
stun guns.
Guns. And then you stepped in water. Like that wasn't enough, right?
I think that's the most dangerous juggling act ever devised. All those thousands of volts while I'm standing in a tub of water.
I'm watching you juggle these things, and I'm like, okay, if one of those lands on his hand, he's going to be on the ground. And then you like casually stop and you step in the water. And I'm like, oh my God, I cannot watch this.
I'm just letting it blind, and I don't want to give you any ideas. Don't blindfold yourself. I mean, this guy would not surprise you.
Oh my God.
I want to tell you a quick story about the hook, if I may.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
I have a world record with the hook. The narrower the rod that it's made from, the less the pressure can be spread out. So narrower is more painful and more dangerous. So this is only 3/16 of an inch. And I set a world record, and I had to have an audience. So there was a little town in my area had a celebration, and they asked me if I would do something for them. So they had an outdoor basketball court where they held their celebration. And I put this hook in my head. And then, do you know what a pedal surrey is?
No, I don't. I don't know if I want to, but go ahead. Do it.
A pedal surrey is often available at resorts and things, but I guess the best way to explain it is it's a four-wheeled bicycle. They'll have bench seats and a canopy and
okay.
And they also make matching trailers behind them. So I knew a guy that had a great big one. It was 2 bench seats, and he had the matching trailer, and we loaded it up with 7 passengers, and it was just short of a ton. And I had a rope, and I tied it up to this, and I pulled it into that basketball court. And they gave me a world record for that too. But one of the things that's interesting is my original hook was not heat treated. And I practiced that in training before the actual record-breaking attempt. And the hook bent inside my head. It was too much weight for the hook. I had a hard time getting it back out. And so I had to have one custom made that was heat-treated that could take all the weight.
Oh,
have you ever just, like, as a joke, put one of those in your gone to the hospital? Hey, how do I get this out?
That's a very good question. I used to have a day job, and I worked at the University of Idaho, and I was asked to participate in a safety video. The safety department was there making a video, and what I wanted me to do was come into the office, tell the secretary I have a cut, and she was supposed to demonstrate the proper use of a first aid kit. I was supposed to come in and say, I think I've been hurt. Hold my finger, I think I've been hurt, and she was supposed to do the appropriate first aid actions. So I left the room, and I was waiting for my cue. And for people who are watching this, they may not know I also do an act called the human toolbox, where I hammer spikes into my head. This is a version of it where I put, I drill into my head through my nose.
I remember the drill. Yeah.
Well, I just happened to have a nail and a hammer nearby, so I hammered the nail into my head. And they said, okay, action. Come on in, Brad. So, hey, I think I've been hurt. I need help. And I have the nail head sticking out of my nose, of 5-inch long spike sticking out.
What did she do? I would have screamed if I would have seen you with that.
The guy from the safety office, he wasn't at all happy with it. He didn't think that was funny.
Now, how do you? I mean, don't you like when you swallow swords? Don't you cough and then the gag reflex or put things through your nose? I can't even. I have a hard time squirting things like sinuses. I couldn't do the hook thing or the nose or the nail or the screwdriver or the pulling or the glass walking.
That's why you're not Brad. And
I've got a callus though. I can pull out tree stumps.
Well, I can't hypnotize people either. But yeah, you're right. The natural reaction is to cough or gag, or in the case of the human toolbox, to sneeze. You have to suppress those reflexes in order to be successful. With the sword in place, if you allow yourself to have a cough, you're going to draw blood. It's very serious injury. So the esophagus has to be relaxed to allow the sword blade to go down. The other thing is right here, what's known as the Adam's apple.
Yeah.
The epiglottis. It's a little valve because when you breathe and where you eat meat there. So they say you cannot swallow and breathe at the same time for that reason. And when you try to put a foreign object down, it automatically closes off the trachea to not allow it to enter. So I have to consciously override the involuntary reflexes, make the epiglottis open up so I can ease the blade down my throat. Now, in my case, I've gotten it to the point where it won't seal off the trachea while I'm swallowing the swords. A lot of sword swallowers hold their breath while they're swallowing a sword. But because I can breathe at the same time, it allows me to put the swords down one at a time, which is considered the most difficult and dangerous way possible. And I can put large numbers of them because I can breathe while I'm doing it.
Well, that's a good thing. I'm glad that you're still breathing. That's an important factor of see you tomorrow type of deal.
It's a goal I always strive for.
So people can watch you online. How do they get a hold of it? How do they see some of your stuff? Because I want to post it. I always love hanging out with you. You're fascinating. I mean, getting together with you is more than just entertaining. It's fun. We hang out together.
We've had some good times, that's for sure.
We did.
Well, they can always go to my website, bradbyers.com.
Put that in there, baby girl. And I want to get them on YouTube and all that. And they can watch your stuff on Vimeo. Is that possible, where they can see that?
Yeah. You can just Google Brad Byers just Google Brad Byers. I'm on just about every video channel you can think of. I've got I don't know, over 200 videos on YouTube, and it's stun guns we talked about, the hook, drilling in my head with the drill, all sword swallowing, all that stuff. I'm always putting new videos on.
Now, don't try any of this stuff at home if you're watching, kids or anybody. Don't do it at your home. Whatever you do, don't go to your neighbors. Don't do any of that stuff.
Some of the things I do, there have been performers die attempting it. So I always caution people not to attempt it. It's strictly for their entertainment, not to try it. The risk is very real.
So your last name is spelled a little different. So make sure they get the right last name, right? B-Y.
Last name, yep, B-Y-E-R-S.
Yeah. And what's the most amount of views you have on some of your YouTube?
Oh, I don't know. I'd have to go look. Thousands.
Which is probably the video that's been watched the most that you know?
I think one of the most popular ones is the very first time I was on, the first season I was on America's Got Talent. I went on there drilling into my head with electric power drill, and they went pretty crazy about that. I actually have a record I have some imitators, but I actually have a record for originating that drill act. So if you see any other performers crazy enough to do it, they got the idea from me.
So how many times you were on America's Got Talent?
How far did you get?
I made it to that last round I was telling you about with the live rounds with audience votes at Radio City Music Hall. That was on season 8, so that's been a few years ago. I was on season 4 with my drill, And that was just the token sideshow act on that one. Then on season 8, I swallowed a bunch of swords and twisted them in my throat behind a fluoroscope so you could watch that it was the real deal. Oh. And then they hit me back with the hook, and I pulled my wife, Dr. Scare, and the host of the show at the time, Nick Cannon, on a cart around on stage. I also take a propane blowtorch, and I turn up the flame as high as it'll go, and I extinguish it on my tongue, and I did that on America's Got Talent. And then
that hurts. That really does hurt.
The problem is the flame shoots out about this far, and there's a point where I have to pass my face through the flame to get my tongue to the end of the nozzle to extinguish it. So when you run the flame across your face and your lips, it's easy to get burned.
Yeah, think.
Man, I thought I was real macho because I ate fire a couple times. Not with gas. I was with lighter fluid.
I call
it baby.
I call it extreme fire eating, the blowtorch.
Yeah, that's extreme. God. You don't want any aftershave lotion on when you're doing that. You got all your hair. It just you look normal. It's just from the outside, you look normal. To open your brain, we might find some interesting characters in there. I love hanging out with you. Yolanda and I just love it. So we have a lot of good times, a lot of memories. And we know a lot of weird people in our profession. I mean, here I've got you. I've got an alligator reference. Gil
we should get Gil
Bubba Blackwell, the motorcycle jumper, the guy shooting out of a cannon. We've got juggler. I mean, we know a variety of people. Ventriloquists we had on there. So our circle of friends are all in a way kind of weird. Like there's no that thought of judgment if we fail isn't going to be there because we all had to fail sometime to get where we're at. And it's just a pleasure to be able to hang out with you and get to know you. People got to check you out. It's amazing. I mean, you definitely don't need any more promotion, but at the same time, it's such a pleasure to have you on our show.
I know. We'll have to do this again because I'm sure you've got tons more stories to share.
After this COVID crisis is over, I sure hope to work with you guys again.
Well,
yeah, that would be fun.
Hopefully we'll be able to, all events were canceled up until September. We might be in Spokane if they have that fair there, and maybe Yakima. We might be able to jump into those. And South Carolina, we usually go to Charleston at Matson County Fair. So those are the 3 we might do. And I definitely would love to, I'm going to talk to, hopefully get you in and work together again. I think we make a great team.
It's fun.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
I say we make a great team together, with your act, my act. What else do we need? Just we
make a great team. Plus, we just have a blast off stage too.
Oh yeah,
that's where the nuts are. That's where we get crazy, right? That our jobs are easy. It's when we get off stage that's crazy. That is a blast. So, oh man. Well, Brad, thanks for being here. Make sure you check out BradByers.com, BYERS. So Brad Byers, and check him out. Go to
YouTube. Go to YouTube. Look up his name. You'll find a lot of videos on there. And he's on Facebook too. So he's doing, stuff on Facebook that, like I said, I was just watching some of his videos, and I'm always like,
we should have
like, oh my God, what's he gonna do?
Screaming is my applause, Yolanda.
We got to do one for it from now on.
Painting is my standing ovation.
Oh my gosh. Oh my God. Well, make sure I want people to share this video as much as possible.
Definitely.
Get people out there. If you run across his name, if you have to fly within 1,000 miles or 2,000 miles to see his show, it's well worth it. You will leave going, whoa. You won't want to eat a lot after seeing his show. No. So if you get a diet program, How to Lose Weight with Brad Byers, attend the show.
Attend the show.
Because you're like, wow. So phenomenal entertainer, an awesome, incredible man, businessman, friend, just a great guy. And thank you for taking your time and on your schedule to be here. And there's so much more of us that nobody really knows, It's an hour. It's hard to get everything in there, knowing you for as long as we have.
I know.
So we'll have to have back as a guest again. People I know would love to have you back on, and maybe you can do a sword swallow next time or something. Who knows?
I'd be happy to. Yeah.
All right. We'll have to do that next time then.
Make sure you check out Brad Byers at
All right,
bradbyers.com. Share the video. Show your love, support. Give us your comments. And let us know. We're probably going to have either Will Smith or, Matthew
Stop
McConaughey.
name dropping. We're not having any of those people on our show. So
We might.
you're always talking, and nothing ever makes sense. Anyway, go tend to your horses. Thank you for giving us an hour of your day to sit here and share your stories and make us laugh. But it was great seeing you and talking with you, and hopefully we'll do this again.
And happy birthday. Happy birthday for sure. Not sure when his birthday is, but I missed it. So I want to get it in now.
It's an early birthday wish.
Early or late, one of those two. But, hey. it's always a birthday somewhere, Brad.
It's been a blast, you guys.
All
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Much
We'll
love
see
to you,
ya.
brother. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Man, you got to
Oh,
check
man.
out his show. If you have not seen his show, it's incredible. Honestly, it's kind of funny and queasy. And guess what else?
Queasy.
Well, when you look at it,
Nerve-wracking.
like we were at his show,
Kidding?
and I was like, Brad, why don't we get some of the audience members to overcome their fear and things like that? And I could use hypnosis to help them. So, they'd hold the spider, they'd get the candy, crush cans, all kinds of crazy things. And the things we got to do with Brad were really an amazing motivation for people watching the show and realize that they can get further ahead in life too. That all the things we think that are harmful to us because of television and things like that, like the tarantula, when you hold it and it feels meat in your hand, when you put a different meaning to it,
It's like holding a piece of paper on your hand.
and it's so light. It's like a little angel.
That's how it felt.
And it was kind of cool.
A hairy
to
piece
see.
of paper
Yeah.
on your hand. That's what it felt like.
It's like Yolanda putting her hand on my chest, a hairy piece of things on there. So
Okay, people don't need to know that.
I'm gonna go get waxed though.
People don't need to
I don't know if Brad actually waxes.
TMI.
So you talk about real danger. You go get waxed.
People don't need to know that. That's too
Ba-boom.
much information.
Ba-boom.
Oh
You
my
talking about
God.
some sensitive
They don't
areas
want
there,
it.
baby
They don't
girl.
want it. They don't want to hear about your waxing issues.
You don't know that. They might.
No, they don't.
Check us out. We got a
I
lot
think
of
the
shows.
only time they want to know about your waxing issues is if you videotape it.
You know what? I'm doing it. I'm gonna set an appointment to go get waxed, and I'm gonna videotape. I'm gonna streamline the next one. You want to see that? I'll show you.
We're not.
And this is real hair coming off, the real deal. So we're going to do that. We're going to
Real
get
hair versus what?
glued on.
Oh,
See,
good.
I am in training to be like Brad
terrible at
Byers.
explaining things.
I'm in training like
Anyway.
Brad.
We
got a
will
lot of shows.
see.
Got a lot of shows uploaded on video, don't we? We just uploaded a bunch more, didn't we? What? What's that?
She goes, doesn't your face hurt from laughing that much? Yeah,
no.
sometimes my face does hurt up from laughing, yes, but it's all good.
Mine hurts all the time
Let's
because
see,
every time I look at Yolanda, I smile because I'm so lucky to have her.
Oh. You're so full.
We just uploaded a few more years of Vimeo on, so if you want to check out some of our shows.
That made no sense. We just uploaded more shows on Vimeo.
That didn't make sense.
It didn't. You didn't say videos. You just said we uploaded. What did you upload?
More videos? It's in the word Vimeo. Video.
Just go to
Same thing.
Hypnotist Smart. Check out all the videos. And then we'll be back Friday. We'll have two special guests on Friday.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
No, they'll be fun.
No, one of our dogs just passed gas.
Oh, good God. Nobody needs to know that.
You can't see
Anyway,
it, but it stinks.
We'll see you guys on Friday and then again Sunday for our cooking show. So
with Mark and Yolanda.
Thank you for joining us.
Hey, share the video.
I know we were early, but we switched our schedule around today.
Yeah.
So, but thank you for joining us, and we will see you on Friday.
Share the
Make
video.
sure you, like the video.
Make some comments.
Share it.
And Carson, happy birthday, brother. Love my little buddy. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.